Melissa Sue Anderson, Little House on the Prairie, but she doesn't use Sue anymore. It doesn't seem like it. She's just Melissa Anderson. Welcome. How are you doing, Melissa?
I'm great, and I'm honored to be with Charlie Tuna. I grew up with you.
Well, you're on a book tour now, a national book tour with your new book, The Way I See It, about her days and the years, really, on a Little House on the Prairie. Mm-hmm. On the book tour itself, what's the strangest question you've gotten from a fan so far? Is there one that stood out to you, or maybe a request or reaction?
Right. Well, I got, from a disc jockey, actually. He said that when he was in college, he would get off work, at like 7 in the morning, and he'd go, I guess he was working, an underling sort of position while he was going through college, and he'd go back to the dorm and with a six-pack and watch Little House. I was like, what is wrong with this picture? This doesn't... And then they said they did drinking games with the... And I was horrified. My daughter was just finishing up her freshman year in school, and I'm like, I really don't need to hear this. I really could have gone all day without this. It was just, I thought, with Little House of all things,
Tell me the day that you had to audition for Little House on the Prairie. I mean, you first had a meeting, right? And they said, come back, we'll have you do a read.
Right.
And by the way, I'm wearing a blue shirt because they said you wore a blue outfit that day to enhance your very blue eyes. Beautiful blue eyes.
Oh, thank you. Well, you too. See, your shirt helps your eye. There you go. Brings them out. Yes, and I did. My agent said, wear something blue. It brings out your eyes, So I did. I wore a blue check shirt, I think. And I had a big meeting with the Suits at NBC, and that's something I'd never done before. I had never auditioned for a pilot for a series, actually. So I'd never had one of these big kind of corporate-like interviews, and that was interesting, and it was fun because Al Trisconi, who was the vice president of talent at that time, was very nice and made me feel very comfortable. So I didn't feel so scared and everything, and it was great. I thought I was going in for some sort of Western. And he said, do you know what this is? And I said, no. And a Western. And he said, it's Little House on the Prairie. Have you read the books? And I said, oh, well, of course. And I was very excited. And then I was asked back to read for Mike Landon. And I did that, and
that was the day your mom got very excited.
Yes,
right? Meeting Michael Landon.
That's right. I write in my book all about it, where it's actually funny too because I do screenplay pages in my book.
I love that the way you've written that. I like that the way that you have like you're reading a screenplay.
Yes, it was a good device. I believe the reason I thought of it was because I wanted a way to get my head back into an 11-year-old. And that came to mind. And it's worked out well because I think people like to see what a real script looks like to read. And, my husband, who is a professional script writer, screenplay writer, he did that for me. He formatted it because the publisher went nuts over that. They were like, ah! But they have to do it all by hand. But so he was the go-between guy on that part. But I wrote, of course, all the dialogue and everything, and it was great because I could really get into the characters. I really felt like I made Mike Landon sound exactly like he sounded at the time, mm-hmm. And my agent was my agent and all that. So they were very fun, and that happens to be one of those scenes where we're exiting I've done the reading and we're exiting the office, my mother and I, and we go the wrong way, and this voice from behind us says, "You're going the wrong way," and we turn around, and my mother really did almost faint because it was Mike Landon, and he was so handsome, and anyway, he walks us out, and it was a very pleasant and fun conversation we had, and it was interesting because I talked about my mother actually brought up that she was trying to fill the gap in the conversation, and she brought up that she loves Bonanza. She had loved Bonanza, mm-hmm. and I said, oh yes, and I love the one where you went blind, which was an interesting thing for me to say at that time. And I said, but she put me to bed in the middle of it. And he went, what? You put her to bed in the middle of my show? And my mother was just dying. But But it was really great because after it was all over and we said goodbye, I write in the book that we could have died happy because Michael Landon was like totally dreamy, you know.
Yeah. Well, and that's so much a prophetic statement of your eventual character on Little House on the Prairie, little Mary Ingalls, who goes blind.
That's right. That's right. So it is interesting that I happened
Pull that out of the air, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my. Well, and one other little aside too. Back in the '70s, you had a favorite Columbo episode that eventually would be something else very prophetic, right?
Right. There was an episode, and now I can't think of the name of it, of course, but there was an episode where Jack Cassidy played a magician, and I loved it. And I'm not the only one. I guess a lot of people have seen it and really loved it, and they play them so often, and I just loved it. And it turned out that my husband, Michael Sloan, that was one of his first writing gigs when he came. He went from when he was a little kid. He moved to England for 16 years, and then he came back to California, and that was one of the first things he did. Was he wrote a spec script? Actually, that's what he did. A spec script and sent it to Universal, and they never accepted spec scripts, but they did. And that was
that was your favorite.
That was
your
my
eventual
favorite
husband.
and my husband, right? And the beginning of his career here, yeah.
There's one other thing. I just kind of flipping through the pages too. It said you were the first one up for the part of Blue Lagoon that Brooke Shields eventually took.
Right. I was.
You turned it down.
I did. Yeah. I just didn't feel comfortable. There was a lot of
Yes.
Yeah, it just
there wasn't much of, you want to say.
Yeah, that's right.
You're running around naked on the beach almost.
Right. It wasn't really my, and I'm I burn easily, and this isn't for me. But also I had a morals clause in my NBC contract, so I don't think it would have gone very far, those negotiations anyway. But she went on, she made it famous.
Yeah. Well, that's what made you so perfect for your Mary Ingalls character, everybody says, because you and your character were very much alike, weren't you?
Yes, because I was, as a kid, very shy, reserved, and misunderstood a lot of the time, where people would think that they'd get the impression that I was standoffish or a snob or something, because I might be thinking about something, and I was very serious, and I might be thinking about something, and I could walk right by somebody. I wouldn't even see them. I didn't mean not to say hello. I would go back and say hello, but I just, it was one of those kids, and I was just really shy, but I was able to kind of channel that into the acting thing, because that really became my niche. I really felt comfortable, and it was a way of playing a character and getting out of yourself, and it was easier to be more open.